Welcome back to the Marketing Moment with DB Dynamo. We have some big news to share, which we will gloss over pretty quickly for this context, but we went under a rebrand. Now, we've been talking to you for quite a while since we started this podcast about our credentials in e-commerce, but that had been a largely new innovation for us, or at least as we were saying publicly, that e-commerce was our focus. And a big part of us laying that stamp, if you will, is a part of a rebrand. And we are now going by the name DB Dynamo. We will talk to you more at length about what that means in future episodes, but be sure to visit our new website, dbdynamo.com, and you can learn a little bit more about us. But if you were tuning back into the Marketing Moment, this is our podcast. We are an e-commerce agency focusing on brands that scale for the brain and the body. And unofficially, we say if your customers learn it, eat it, or wear it, we help you sell it. So if you have come to us, in weeks past for information about e-commerce, ways to learn about different ad tech and ways to scale your own business, and just to get trends and insights as to what's happening in this quickly you evolving space, you have come to the right place. And this week, number one, I'm excited to have Nicole back with me. Say hello, Nicole.
Hi, guys.
And
Happy.
we're coming to them on a yeah.
It's been about 3 episodes without me, but
it has been about 3 episodes, and we did miss you dearly. But this week, we're going to talk about advertising platforms on the rise and how to leverage them. But before we get there, you know that we do our digital dash, and Nicole has a couple of things to share with you. So we're going to kick it off there. Nicole, tell them what you got.
So our first article today is actually an opinion piece from Ad Age, and it's called How the Content Boom Created Consumer Distrust. So the long and short of it is consumers are no longer oblivious. They are very privy to how personalized ads work. They know they're seeing ads because they either typed in a keyword, visited a page regarding a specific topic, or they spoke too loudly around a smart speaker like an Alexa, for example.
That's also true, yeah.
Everyone thinks that their phones are listening to them. So based on Ad Age's opinion article, they had said what's worse is they can't tell the difference between an ad or organic content anymore. Today's a day where I cannot talk. We're going to keep going. So,
keep plowing through. I got all the faith in you.
Yes. So with that, the data point is based on basically consumers that were asked. 96% of consumers said they don't trust ads anyway. Jeez. So, yes. DB, your thoughts?
Well, it's, I think this goes to a broader conversation outside of just, e-com and digital, but it's just kind of media literacy. It's the intersection between what's happening in the ad space and people finally, to your point, becoming aware of how they get targeted with things. But in general, I think this is a country that, there's substantial data that showcases this, but it's not a very media literate country in the sense that they have the ability to decipher and understand their sources, to understand the difference between an opinion piece and an actual news piece, and also understanding who it's coming from. And, we won't go down the political alley, but we know that what we hear from Fox News and CNN are very different, and both are even much different compared to the New York Times, for instance. Or NPR, right, which is the decidedly, central.
Right.
So I think the fact that, consumers already had a baked-in distrust of advertising, and the fact that anybody can pretty snake oil salesman-y put a digital ad in front of them in a few minutes with something that's either inaccurate, untrue, or a combination of both, has done very few favors to credibility in the advertising industry. And so I wouldn't say any of this is news to me, but I do think it reinforces something that, I guess Julie and I were talking about on previous episodes, and frankly, something we talk a lot about on our podcast and content in general, usually as it relates to influencers, but authenticity. People smell bullshit a mile away, and they don't want to deal with it, or they will choose not to deal with it because they don't trust it. If you can find ways to really profess your authenticity, whether it's through the message itself or the context that it can be found in, I think you really have to double down on those things, because it's very clear that the credibility of advertising and digital in particular is not getting better with time. It's getting worse.
Completely agreed. I definitely think that the tide is changing, and this is just kind of a sign of the times that people's minds are kind of evolving, that ads won't really be as effective anymore. Again, it is hard to decipher the organic versus what's paid at this point. So that kind of brings us into our next segment based on your note on authenticity. This other headline is also from Ad Age. It's titled TikTok's Changes Influencer Marketing Rules. I don't know why TikTok has an apostrophe against the end of it, but Let's just put it this way. TikTok changes influencer marketing rules.
We're tired. We're a tired people today, so we're just working through a couple of our own errors in speaking. We'll get there.
This is not, yeah, we're working through it. Okay. So right now, because of so much kind of fake influencer content that's being put out there, influencers, as we discussed on past episodes, are under fire right now because their branded content, they're not disclosing if it's an advertisement or not. That's a very hot topic in the influencer world. A lot of kind of creators in themselves are investigating this and bringing it out to light. I'm not going to put those handles out there, but there are a lot of like underground accounts where they love to expose influencers and what they're doing. It's pretty juicy. I do follow a couple of them. I take it with a grain of salt though, but if you have time in your hands, I do recommend doing the digging and checking it out. However, TikTok, because of this, it seems like they're actually taking charge and trying to regulate this. So as of, I believe last week, TikTok is now requiring creators to enable a brand new content toggle that is currently being tested with creators with more than 10,000 followers. So this toggle basically regulates the influencer and the content they're posting to ensure that they are disclosing that this is a paid ad. So when they're posting branded content, TikTok defines it as a creator receiving something of value from a third party, such as a brand, in exchange for a post. So it could be monetary, it could be a free item, gift. We all know how influencer marketing works at this point. TikTok states that all brand content will be reviewed by its moderation team. The toggle feature adds hashtag ad in the description of any video as well. So it's super important. So it's actually changing the copy on its own, and it's automated for the influencer's post. So creators can also link videos to brand campaigns by entering campaign details or a code provided by the advertiser. So this is something even on the advertising agency side, if you are working with influencers, you should know that these are kind of pieces to put together for the puzzle in order to provide your campaign over to the influencer to handle the content from there. So if you're creating a brief, perhaps, maybe it's something that you're going to have to think in advance of a code to provide or something to differentiate it so you know that this is being tracked via TikTok and that it does, again, cover the TikTok policy for influencers. So the link campaigns will also post analytics to the TikTok creator marketplace. So this also changes the dashboard, which is pretty interesting. TikTok, again, has had a harder stance than Facebook and Instagram when it comes to financial and dating services as well. So influencers it's cracking down on, and kind of the crypto financial influencers, anything kind of or monetary, should I say? Monetary?
Yeah, monetary.
Yeah, monetary. So anything that kind of promotes that type of vertical, it's also cracking down on as well. So topics like pyramid schemes, crypto content, hopefully they get MLM schemes as well soon. I don't know if that's under this umbrella. Those are pretty creepy.
Let's hope.
Yeah. But again, Facebook and Instagram haven't really led the charge on that as of yet. So this is something that's up and coming with TikTok.
Yeah, I think this is a really smart move. You know, the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, I want to say maybe about 2 years ago now, really started to crack down on this, where they were, you know, essentially saying they were going to start enforcing non-disclosures of people doing exactly what you were talking about. So, oh, maybe I didn't get paid for the product, but I'm getting it, you know, for free, and I'm selling it, but I'm not really clear on the fact that that's happening. Creators have gotten a lot better than that, especially in this hyper litigious society. A lot of people are getting sued for non-disclosures of those things. And you're right. Facebook and Instagram kind of took baby steps towards some of this with like the branded content label. When someone, you know, is working with a brand, they can sort of identify that in the, I guess, like the tagging of the post. But this is the first that I've seen, at least, where you're able to disclose it, you know, automatically in the content. And I actually think that's really smart of TikTok. It probably removes a lot of, you know, risk exposure, so to speak, from a legal standpoint, of making sure that they know, that the consumers know on the platform who's who and who's working with who, more importantly. But it also ties in, oddly enough, perfectly to your first one in the digital dash about how people don't trust advertising. And I'm not saying something like this is going to solve the whole thing, but stuff like this is critical. These are the steps that we need to take. So, you know, smart move by TikTok, to the extent that they will find other ways to, you know, put in disclaimer content and things like that, not even just labeling things ads. Let's see where that goes. But I think that's a good thing.
And that concludes our digital dash segment for today. And I'm going to let David segue into our actual segment for today's episode.
I appreciate that. And thank you for a draw. Okay, I'm also struggling with my words. Thank you for a fantastic performance on the digital dash. We are melting down in front of you, but I can assure you the content is good. So as I mentioned up top before Nicole kicked things off, that we were going to talk about three ad platforms. Well, I didn't say three, but we did talk about platforms on the rise and how to leverage them. And we've earmarked three of them. Nicole's going to talk to you about a few that we're putting on an honorable mention list. Now, obviously, if we were to talk about all of the channels that are on the rise and how to leverage them, we would be here for days, perhaps. But so we're going to try to keep it condensed, but still give you some things that you can use. And like I said, we could this could become the Harry Potter series in length, but we narrowed it down to three for digestion's sake. And look, we're obviously aware that there's a lot of platforms that are available through digital and traditional outlets, most of which are at least default options in the mind of even novice marketers, right? So when I talk about, some assumptions that I'll make about you as a listener, I'm going to guess that you have an awareness or a basic knowledge of, traditional TV types or traditional ad types like TV, radio, print, out of home, and stuff like that. And your top digital ad types like Facebook, Google, Amazon, and maybe programmatic and banner ads. And then you have awareness of other popular channels, but maybe not their ad capabilities, which again, these are just some guesses, but connected TV, Reddit, Pinterest, streaming services, Spotify, Twitch, podcasts, Instacart, things like that. But we did pick these three for a reason. And to help pick them, we did a little homework regarding trends on user behavior on the channels that are mainstream. It wouldn't be useful to you for us to say, oh, there's a channel with 10,000 followers, often somewhere in Arizona, that people are starting to pick up on. Like, you need to be able to act on it now. But in channels really that still represent untapped opportunities at scale. And here's what we found. So number one is TikTok. We talk about TikTok every week, and I will clarify, TikTok is not a new channel. And in fact, as of 2 days ago, it became the first non-Facebook mobile app to be downloaded more than 3 billion times globally, which is just about half of the people on Earth. It's insane to think about that. But where it's still an on the rise opportunity is not in the channel because it's huge, but it's the ad platform, not because of its scale. As I said, there's a lot of that. But as the number of US TikTok users is projected to still rise another 18% this year, with Reddit actually just behind it at 14%. Both represent a larger percentage growth than any of the other top social channels. And yes, that includes Facebook and Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, Snapchat, and LinkedIn, all of them. And TikTok is on the rise because it's still not proven to be a consistent driver of conversions for ROI-focused advertisers. And if you're speaking our language as an e-commerce agency, that's ultimately what it comes down to, is that ROI. But let's talk about that. It is, I'm generalizing, of course, that it doesn't deliver ROI. So let me clarify, but some brands have done well, but at aggregate, Facebook has a more time-tested reputation for proof that it can drive revenue. And that doesn't mean that TikTok's not a good ad channel. It just means in the meantime, TikTok has shown itself as a cost-effective option, but just maybe not in the area where it counts most at the bottom line, but it's definitely worth testing. So a couple bullet points here. A team called Jungle Top that we've heard of ran a side-by-side test of Facebook and TikTok for one client, and they found that the CPM on TikTok was 270% more affordable than Facebook's, and the CPC was 142% less expensive. And when it came to the one measure of effectiveness, this is where things kind of fell apart a little bit. They tracked, in this case, click-through rate. Facebook actually was 50% better than TikTok. So I can't make generalizations, but the assumption that we're going in with is that at a basic level, TikTok is not fantastic at driving attributable revenue, but it is good at some of the other stuff like awareness and engagement. So we think, obviously those metrics tell a story, but they also imply an opportunity. So assume for a second the premise is right, that TikTok ads are not a consistent proven driver of revenue. But that doesn't mean the channel isn't effective. It just means most brands haven't figured out a way to monetize it. But the rest of the metrics tell this other story that I alluded to. You can reach a highly engaged user base for a lot less money than you can on Facebook, and you can generate clicks for less money too. So if there's an opportunity to leverage TikTok ads today, which is the point of what we're telling you, I think this is the most obvious way to do it. And that is, let TikTok do what it does best. Take over people's collective consciousness. You might not see your products immediately fly off the shelves, so that was our caveat. But one thing we know is that the eyeballs and the web traffic don't always lead to immediate sales anyway. So our thought is, when you pair TikTok with retargeting campaigns on channels that are proven effective at driving revenue, then what you've done is you've reduced a significant amount of your ad costs on the upfront, what we'll call awareness and engagement, while ensuring that the channels that do drive sales still have that opportunity to do so. And from our approach, that's a savvy way to go about it. Now, I do want to talk briefly about different types of ad types on TikTok. We're not going to spend all day in here, but let's just gloss over them real quickly so you understand what it is that you can do. On TikTok, they have in-feed ads. It's easy. They show up in your feed. There's brand takeover ads. It's the first thing that pops up when you open TikTok. There's top view ads, which show up the top of the For You page, and it gives you 60 full seconds of full screen autoplay, unless someone pushes away from it. There's branded hashtags, so anyone who goes to look at top hashtags would see yours first. And branded effects, which is really frankly like Snapchat and Instagram's filter features, but for TikTok. The question, of course, always is there one type of ad that's more effective than another? I hate giving this answer, but it depends. It depends on your brand. It depends on your audience. But our general guiding principle is to actually test the ad types for yourself, and they're going to be different by client as well. Test them for each client. Don't let what you're familiar or comfortable with be the determinant of what you try on new channels. But if you were one of our skincare brands, for instance, we would encourage you to try branded effects, because you get to put the product on your face in instances like that, or something like it, so to speak. But that's my quick rundown of TikTok. Dubs, is there anything that you would think to add about the opportunities on that channel, or maybe even just the things that you've seen?
So you're not going to like this answer, but as a 31, almost 32-year-old millennial, I do not touch TikTok whatsoever.
Well, that's totally okay.
I really haven't seen anything publicly. I really can't comment on that. I wish we had our Gen Zer on the podcast today.
Yeah, well, that's okay. Not everyone's got to be an expert at everything. That's why we have Julia. Fair enough. All right. Well, for today, then, let's just assume that I've got the right idea on this. But that is our take. In short, you have to test these channels, and people also know what type of content they like on TikTok. I mean, we all see it, with the exception of Nicole, but people who are consumers of content on TikTok know the types of content that they like. So if you're going to advertise on the platform, you can't just throw in your branded stuff because it's what you want to say. You have to find a way to integrate it with the way the customers and consumers are already talking, which actually ties in really well to the second channel that I want to recommend, which is Reddit. And perhaps
that I can speak to.
You can speak to
that. I can. Yes, I'm a Redditor.
A little Redditor. All right. Well, I'll kick it off for us. Perhaps surprisingly, I mentioned this a little bit more, but Reddit trailed closely behind TikTok as a top growth channel for 2021. And they're actually really actively investing in that growth too. We have a link on our blog where you can learn more about that. But the surprise isn't because Reddit isn't a legit player. It's one of the top 20 sites on the internet, and it has more users than Twitter. But the surprise is that for as long as it's been around and for how much viral content is born there, it's still somehow under the radar. So we have 3 reasons to dive into Reddit. From, again, this is an incomplete list, but number 1, because of its growth metrics, as we mentioned, it's the second fastest growing channel in the US behind TikTok. Number 2, because it has a proven track record for birthing viral content from really tightly knit communities. And third, which is perhaps the most important for this episode, is that its ad platform is still underutilized. Now, let's talk a little bit about what Reddit is for those of you who are not Nicole. But for better or worse, Reddit is kind of a truth chamber with some of the most passionate users on the internet, or really on the planet, for any digital or social channel that you're going to find. As it relates to brands, if you're a brand with a great story to tell and the boldness to tell it with gusto, Reddit might deliver the type of value that no other channel on the internet can touch. And I don't think that's hyperbole, because if people on Reddit love you, they will make sure the world knows it. And if you're unsure about the truth of that, just look at AMC and GameStop stock and what happened with them. And that all happened because of Reddit. So the power, pound for pound, of Reddit, I would argue, is better than any social digital channel on earth. So that's why I think maybe it could even be number 1 on our list of emerging channels to pay attention to for that reason alone. But let's talk again the way that we did with TikTok, with the type of ad types that they have. Now, on paper, Reddit's offerings probably look the most like Facebook's, or at least in the first 2. Maybe actually it looks a little bit more like Twitter's. You have promoted posts, which are like a regular Reddit post, but it says promoted. Promoted video is the same, but it's video. Then there's community takeovers, which is you basically get to be the first brand seen in top communities for your chosen category or categories. You have front page takeovers, which is a branded experience on the most seen page on the site. And then you have other takeovers, which are trending takeovers and Reddit takeovers, which we'll get into another day. But I think the reason Reddit stays under the radar for so many often comes down to two things. And this is the reason that I think Reddit is perhaps the most powerful channel available to us, but also in continuing to be in this challenger space. It is these two things. Number one, it's a little complicated because you need to do a lot more research on this channel in particular to know the right content for your ads. Whereas, on other channels, you can just kind of show up in someone's feed, but on Reddit, like, they're going to sniff you out as anything less than authentic or credible if you're not. And you really need to know, like, where the right place is to put your ads. If you're in the wrong community, in the wrong context, with the wrong interests, then everything about your campaign is going to fall to pieces. So you really need to know intimately, not just who your user is, but where they exist and reside on Reddit. And then the second thing is, good creative on Reddit looks the least like any other channel's good ad creative. And it might be intimidating to advertisers to even try to figure out a good piece of content on that channel that they're willing to put ad dollars behind. So those are the big caveats, but I think that Reddit is a monstrous opportunity for the brands who can understand the channel intimately and go invest their time there. Now, as I had mentioned, Reddit ad types are not super different from a lot of competitors, and neither are their ad objectives from the other major players. So you have brand awareness and reach campaigns, traffic, conversions, app installs, video views. But the targeting, as I had mentioned, is where, in our estimation, a lot of the advertisers fall apart, because the interests and communities you select are critical. And if you don't know Reddit, your own customers, or both, you're going to be disappointed by the outcomes. So I would say nail those down and then dive all in on a test campaign, again, across a number of ad types, as I'd mentioned before. So those are the two I had prepared, but Nicole is going to dazzle you with a third and a couple of your honorable mentions. So that's my piece. What do you got for us?
I actually do want to hop back to Reddit for a second, because I feel like there's such a wealth of information behind Reddit that no one ever really touches, I feel like. So I do want to say that a lot of memes are actually brought from Reddit. As you discussed before, Wall Street bets that cause such a stink in economics for the whole entire country back in April, May. Also, Reddit has a huge male demographic. So their users that are active, if you were a men's brand, for example, or even like a men's skincare brand or a deodorant brand, what have you, Reddit is such a great opportunity to jump into a conversation. And because Reddit has so much, like, just an opportunity in general, Facebook even tried to rebrand their whole groups platform to basically emulate Reddit. That's their main competitor to Reddit. I really don't think they're that successful, to be honest.
Yeah, not on Facebook.
Yeah, no. But yeah, there is so much behind Reddit. I actually did pull up some stats just to kind of put it in perspective in terms of active users, in case anyone listening out there has this kind of demo that falls within these demographics, or has this information, or has customers that fall within these demographics.
That sounds right.
Yeah, I can never talk to these podcasts.
Bear with us, people. We're doing our best.
Doing our best here. It's the end of the week. Okay, so 1 in 4 U.S. adults are within the 25 to 29 age range. That's something good to know. Again, this information is from Oberlo. I just pulled this now. 2.8 million subreddits exist on Reddit. So that means there's 2.8 million opportunities of topics that users could be involved in some way, somehow. So that's super important. The next one is Reddit boasts more than 130,000 active communities. So within those subreddits are the communities of actual active users. So it's a pretty important stat as well. The best time to post on Reddit, again, if you're a brand, are weekends and Mondays. So that kind of does align with even my own usage. Like, if I have downtime, I'm probably just scrolling Reddit. And the only reason why I'm using Reddit is because of IMDb, which is now owned by Amazon. So it all ties together. It all comes full circle. But the IMDb message boards, they took away. And because I am like a pop culture nerd, I would always like read IMDb message boards if it was pertaining to movies or TV shows. So similarly, let's say...
Party animal.
No,
I say you're a party animal.
It's one of those things, yeah, people would never know that about me. If you know me in real life, you would not know that I do that in my spare time, but it's what I do. It's better than just like mindlessly scrolling Instagram and learning nothing. So.
We've all got our vices.
It's interesting to hear like people's opinions, what they have to say, but it does kind of align with, again, people that watch TV. That's why that was like the main primary source of advertisement up until probably 5 years ago or so. It does have a very similarly aligned audience. So if you are in TV advertising and you want to kind of make that jump either to streaming services, which we're about to talk to in a speak to in a second, I feel like Reddit kind of really bridges that gap as well, because a lot of people do want to follow up on their TV shows and what they're watching. So if you have like a Bachelor Nation, for example, and you're a women's brand, like a skincare brand, going back to that example, or a vertical, you could easily use a subreddit advertisement targeting women in the Bachelor Nation kind of subreddit.
Right.
If
Which,
that
no, it does. And it actually reinforces, I guess, what I was talking about too, which is like, if you know the communities intimately, it's almost like, it's almost a can't miss. It's like, fishing in like a pond in your backyard, because you just know that that's where your users are. So if you can nail down the targeting part about it, with the communities, then Reddit can be the most powerful channel on the internet, and it wouldn't even be close. But that's the part, to your point, that a lot of people need to do the homework. They exist, but I think they miss the depth of research that would make it that impactful. So that's a great point.
100%. So yeah, it does kind of align. The tactics align with traditional advertising as we know it right now. So just want to put that out there. But in terms of our honorable mentions, switching gears here. So the other platforms that we were kind of thinking of right now that are up and coming, and again, we are a streaming society now. No one really uses cable as much anymore. The tide is shifting. I know cable does have a majority of users, 60%, based on one of our past episodes. We had done the research. But again, streaming is up and coming. Everyone's transitioning into it. Hulu is one of the main streaming services, and they're now owned by Disney currently. So with that said, both Disney and Hulu kind of capitalize on Hulu's self-service ad platform. So it offers a system very similar to Facebook's system if you're used to setting up an ad campaign in that ads dashboard. So it also kind of works like programmatic ads, where you can select the programming type, the genre, and you can target your audience that way, as well as their own kind of demographic profile when they sign up for a Hulu account or even a Disney Plus account. So that's pretty cool. In terms of Amazon, very similarly, Amazon owns Fire Stick. So because of that, Amazon can now select its ad targeting info and placement based on your personal shopping behavior at Amazon, as well as your own first-party data that you've given them just being an Amazon Prime customer. So they're able to basically integrate that into their advertising tactics on the Fire Stick device, which is pretty cool. The last one is going to be Peacock, which again, it is basically a subset of NBC Universal. So with that being said, it can essentially target based on your viewing history and the first party information you've already provided through, honestly, your regular cable provider, because it's a network. So they have so much access to information, but they're also using very traditional kind of data and advertising tactics that come from traditional media. I would say to that point, Peacock actually has 10 different ad formats. Based on if you just pause your show, it will serve you a certain type of ad, which is pretty cool.
Well, I mean, the streaming services, as we know, there's substantial amounts of data that show that this is a trend that it's going. I think the thing that has actually maybe slowed down the growth of streaming services, or maybe prevented it from being as quick as it could grow, is the fact that they created the problem they were trying to solve for. At first, there were a couple of players that aggregated several, and now essentially what they've done is like every TV channel now has its own streaming service. So it's kind of like the same thing anyway.
Exactly.
So that, I think, has made people say, well, then why am I in such a rush to get rid of cable if it's basically just the same thing anyway? Obviously the advantage of streaming services is being able to take it on multiple devices, and that is of course unique. But if you're at home, as most people have been through COVID, cable probably wasn't that bad of a deal, because you don't need the devices, and you have to get all the streaming services anyway. So by the time you just get the one cable package, you have what you need. But
Totally.
But yeah.
I did pull up the ad types so real quick, because it is such a different platform than traditional cable.
Okay.
Running down the list, they have binge ads, which will trigger when a consumer watches 3 episodes of a show, and a sponsor will bring a 4th episode ad-free. I've actually seen something similar on Hulu. If you're a user, maybe you're familiar as well. The next one is a shoppable TV ad. This is something that we discussed high level in terms of Amazon and their tactics. So this might rival that ad product. It's where ads let viewers buy products that are related to the shows that they're watching. So if viewers watch the French Open, which is obviously a tennis tournament, they're actually able to buy Lacoste's Novak Djokovic.
Oh,
I guess that's
Novak Djokovic.
Djokovic, I'm sorry.
He's like perhaps the greatest male tennis player of all time.
Wouldn't that be like Andre Agassi or something? I don't know if that's
Oh, no.
true.
He
Okay.
just tied the record for the most, I think they call them like major titles or something like that, out of any tennis player in history. And he's still young enough to maybe keep going and beat the all-time record. It's pretty crazy.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't been watching tennis in years, but that
That's fine.
you can buy his clothing while you watch him play the actual French Open. So that's pretty sweet.
Cool.
The next one are Prime Pods. So they are single 60-second ad spots, nothing too crazy there or revolutionary. Engagement ads are new. So that will attempt to get consumers to interact with advertisements using trivia questions or product galleries.
That's cool.
I've seen that when I've paused television, so that's pretty sweet. Trending ads, they will show advertisements that are based on certain topics. Solo ads will limit advertising to a single ad within an episode of a show. Almost done that list, 3 more. Curator ads are separate. It will curate collections of NBC Universal titles based on moods, genres, events, or other themes with the opportunity for brands to sponsor those collections. Next one is Explore ads. So it will show a collection of content related to what a viewer was watching while they were paused, offering an option for a viewer to get a discount sent to their phone if they're interested in the product being shown. I've seen something similar with QR ads on Hulu as well, so that could be a rival to that. The very last one, because we're coming up on the end of the episode here, are on-command ads. So it will connect with Comcast's Xfinity voice technology into Peacock. So viewers can speak into the remote following on-screen prompts to interact with the brand and get offers. So definitely a diversified ad mix. What are your thoughts?
I think that's really cool. It's funny. I'm thinking back to the days when I was actually, for whatever reason, a really big Hulu watcher, and they had a lot of interactive ads where you could choose the type of ad that you wanted to see based on your own preferences.
Yeah.
Some of what you're saying now is reminding me a little bit of what that is. So I think that's I think that's really cool. And we talked about Amazon a few weeks back on one of these episodes about the different ways that you could like shop some of the products that were actually in the TV shows if you were watching it on your Fire Stick. And to realize that all of these other opportunities exist in streaming is, at least from an advertiser's perspective, the thing that makes this such a unique space. And especially if you're a digital marketer, because TV has kind of been the thing like where you can't necessarily do all the tracking and attribution for purchase oriented stuff, or at least you can see it, get credit for it. But now that we know streaming has all these capabilities, and probably several that they still haven't tapped into, streaming makes a lot of sense for e-com marketers and digital advertisers alike in ways that maybe they weren't looking at traditional TV, but they would give a second look to connected TV and a lot of the streaming services. So I'm really interested in this.
Same. It's definitely new avenues for us as advertisers.
Never stops.
It doesn't. So that basically concludes the end of this episode, but we are going to provide our audience with a marketing module and the marketing malfunction.
We always do. All right,
yes.
Tell us what's going on.
All right, so the module, this is a wholesome one. It's just kind of beneficial for everyone. Instagram is feel good one, but a boring one. Instagram is adding a new security checkup alert to deter hacking. So this actually happened to me with an old account that I never really used when I first created an Instagram account, like 2011, when it was first on the scene. So I had basically a dummy account because I know how it worked. It was just like a photo filtering app at the time. Like you could use a different, are they still called filters? I don't even know. I feel like my mind is blanking out today.
Yeah.
Okay.
Still filters.
Yeah. Yeah. So back when filters were cool, again, literally 10 years ago, I had a certain account. I didn't know how to use it, and people like weren't following you. That wasn't like the thing to do. But then when it became like a true social account before Facebook bought it, obviously then you start to have followers. Like, oh gosh. So I made a new account, and that's one currently. So long story short, I had 2 accounts. I found out that my other one was being hacked.
Oh, geez.
Somewhere in, like, God knows where, like Czechostan or something. So long story short, I was hacked, and I tried to report it, and I couldn't even report myself because it was like, oh, like, this is new. Yeah, but I'm like getting the notifications on my old AOL email that we're not going to disclose here. So dates me even more for all of this. But for the record, listeners, I do not use AOL anymore. I use Gmail, but it's connected to basically everything.
It's like your therapy chair. You're just really like confessing everything today to all of our listeners.
Yeah, I couldn't speak earlier in the episode, so hopefully this makes up for it. My personality. So that being said, because hacking has increased amidst the pandemic, Instagram is employing this new feature to protect users from getting their accounts or information compromised, which is very common. Again, a lot of things are latent. People are actually sharing way too much information during the pandemic, so it made the opportunity for them to actually get hacked, or it created the opportunity.
Right.
So the checkup will be shown to all users with any level of suspicious activity, but even if you haven't experienced the issue, it will also give you a notification just to update your settings, God forbid, and keep you in check.
Sure.
So that was our nozzle. It's positive, it protects us.
We like
Instagram.
it. Thank you, yeah. Instagram.
Yes, so this malfunction is labeled as Panera Bread introduces swimwear as a soup side. So this is a toss-up as to if it is a malfunction or a mazel. We don't really know. It's a toss-up. We're going to let our viewers decide on this one. Also from Ad Age, this article. So I did take a look. There is a link, friends, maybe we'll provide it in the YouTube caption or along all of our other kind of podcast providers when Julia posts this. Unfortunately, she's not here with us right now, but Panera is launching a new swimwear line highlighting its soup offerings. In particular, the broccoli cheddar mac and cheese, summer corn chowder, creamy tomato, French onion, vegetable, and last but not least, my favorite, home-style chicken noodle soup will be a part of the swimwear line. So this collection offers styles for both men and women, and it is very inclusive. It includes sizes extra small to 4X. There's also an accompanying inflatable bread bowl float, if that makes sense. I saw it. There's a lot less.
Sounds fantastic.
The perk of this is, so I consider this a mazel, but it's under the malfunctions. Well, again, let the viewers decide. But all items are under $30 and come with free shipping.
Well, so I'm going to spoil something for you. Julia and I actually talked about this on last week's episode, and I know you weren't there for it. So, but it's funny that it ended up under the malfunction in both cases. I'm almost positive that's where it was.
Oh yeah. My God. What a waste.
Well, hold on, because I'm very interested that it's come up twice, which means maybe it's not the malfunction that we think it is. If it's getting people,
I think it's a win. I think it's cute. They have everything is like green themed or branded. It's all Panera branding. There's a onesie that's just a soup on it. I myself had a custom made onesie swimsuit for 4th of July 2 years ago. It just has hot dogs on it. I literally custom ordered it and like made it myself. So that was
fantastic. Well,
it's very reminiscent of my own style.
I think I'm really interested in having you buy maybe the bread bowl float or updating your swimwear collection on some soups. I think it's something that we should keep talking about and see what your purchase behaviors lead you to. maybe
I'm all for it, DB. I'm all for it if we expense it.
Fair enough. I suppose we'll talk about that one offline, but awesome. Well, thank you again for tuning in to another week of the Marketing Moment with DB Dynamo. And we are excited to come back to you next week telling you a little bit more about our change. As we had mentioned, we have rebranded, and also to come with you with more topics about what it is that we live, breathe, and learn about this e-commerce space that is critical to our business and probably yours. So thanks again. Don't forget to subscribe to us wherever it is you get your podcasts, and we will see you next time. Thanks again.